We'll begin as we did last week with a passing of the peace. This time we'll do it in the traditional Hebrew, Shalom Aleichem, to which the response is Aleichem Shalom. Let's try it. Shalom Aleichem. Please rise and pass the peace to those around you, and stay standing for our opening hymn. And remain standing for our opening hymn, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Thank you. Be seated and welcome, everyone.
Good morning. I'm Bill Brock, your celebrant this morning.
And I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister of this congregation.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. A special welcome to our visitors. For those of you on Zoom, thanks for tuning in, and please be sure your mic is muted. If you're here with children, there is childcare, or feel free to keep them seated with you or utilize our play area in the back of this room.
Let us ground ourselves in place and in time. We open this gathering with an acknowledgement of the lands, waters, plants, and people, and other animals whose beings are bound up with our own, mutual dependence, and whose ghosts are among us here. Going back 12,000 years, Clovis, Folsom, and Dalton cultures were followed by the cultures of the Woodlands, Hopewell, and Oneata peoples. The Iowa arrived in the 16th century, followed by the Sauk and Meskwaki. Other animals, such as the timber wolf, once roamed these lands in much larger numbers. This location's past calls to us occupying it in the present to join the work of education and healing for all species.
And bring awareness also to our current location in the rhythms of nature. Today is the 6th Sunday of winter. The moon is waning crescent, and the new moon begins Wednesday. Wednesday's new moon is also the Chinese New Year. And on the Islamic calendar, the holy day, Laylat al-Miraj, begins at sundown this evening. The holiday commemorates the miraculous night journey taken by the Prophet Muhammad.
Quick announcements.
For newcomers to our congregation who may be curious to learn a little bit more about us, every first Sunday of the month, we have a curiosity conversation after the service. The next one will be next Sunday, February 2nd.
This year's curriculum for spiritual growth and learning is sketched in our thematic ministry flyer, available on the back table or the front shelf. Our theme for January is vow, and for February it is borders and boundaries, and the new packet is available today. I ran off the first copies just this morning. They are in the basket just outside the doors there.
The minister's discretionary fund allows our minister to extend the congregation's generosity to our financially struggling neighbors. To contribute to that fund, you can grab a marked envelope from the back table, put your contribution in that, and drop it in the offering basket when it comes around.
And now we light our chalice.
We dedicate our chalice this morning to the fifth of the 7 historic Unitarian Universalist principles, our covenant to affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. Please join with me in the chalice lighting words from Dag Hammarskjöld on the screen. All right. I will read it out loud. And you can say, yay. All right. Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, to give back. Yay.
We are a people of covenant, not of creed, and we express our covenant in our denomination's bylaws, our bond of union, our mission, and our relational covenant. Today, please join me in affirming our bond of union. If you would repeat after me. We covenant to associate ourselves for the study and practice of morality and religion, as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity. Hoping thereby to prove helpful to one another, and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world. Oh, we don't need no stinking screens.
Okay. Our responsive invocation this morning is in your gray hymnal. It's in the back, number 661. I'll give you a moment to find that. And when you do find it, I will read the words that are not in italics, and if you would come back with the italicized language. We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken. How many persons we meet in houses whom we scarcely speak to, whom yet we honor, and who honor us. Read the language of these wandering eye beams. Number 318, verse 2.
Today's story is The Pandas Who Promise by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. High on a mountain where clouds drift in billows, 2 panda cubs curl up on bamboo leaf pillows. Eyes tightly shut, tails wrapped around each other, they are kept safe from harm by their kind and loving mother. One is called Popo and other Cow. One liked to think and one loved to do. When the moon rose soft and the stars twinkled through, and the dusky pink bowed to dark inky blue, the cubs stretched awake with a long squeaky yawn, excited at what laid ahead before dawn.
Let's play!
Cows swung nimbly and shouted with glee, but Mama called them from far away. Girls, not too far. Please don't stray. You mustn't roam past the tall pine. If you don't go beyond it, then all will be fine. Never climb down to the mountain, you hear, and when it is daylight, make sure to be near. My beautiful cubs, look after each other. Promise me, will you?
We promise, Mama.
And so they stayed in the treetops. They gambled and grew, and they played hide and seek, and they chewed on bamboo. Each night in their beds, they snuggled each other.
We'll take care of each other now and forever.
But while Popo was cautious and liked to stay still, Cow was wild, and he lived for a thrill. Inside him, a tussle of feelings was swirling. He'd promised to stay, but the mountain was calling.
Popo, don't make a peep. I want to go down. I can't rest. I can't sleep. I must visit the mountain. Be wild and be free.
Cow, you mustn't go. Following me.
Stay here and stay safe. I'll return by nightbreak before the moon's up and Mama's awake.
Popo was shocked. No, he promised, but Cow was already on his way down, his paws scurrying down the mountain slope. Popo knew he must stay by his brother. That much was true. So in one huge decision, off Popo went, silently making his secret descent.
Wow, it's magical.
They stared in amazement at all they had saw. So much to take in, to smell, and to taste. It made staying home seem like such a great waste. But unseen on that mountain, they didn't yet know, something prowled silently, cloaked by the snow. Cow was running and jumping, but then he tripped and slid down the mountainside. He scrambled and slipped.
I've fallen! Help!
He had fallen right into the worst kind of jeopardy, skidding towards something spotted and leopardy.
What should I do?
Popo remembered his promise, and then he just knew. He grabbed at a cane and the best he could find until promise and action were closely entwined.
Help! Cow, hold on!
The cane whooshed back as they gripped to each other. Popo called to his brother, filled with fear.
I want to be home, cuddled close to Mama. I understand now. Let's get going.
Tired and remorseful with many lessons learned, Cow and Popo sprinted for home as the dawnlight began to glow. They returned safely to the treetops, tails tucked in tight and heads bowed low.
We went back on our word. We're sorry, Mama.
But Mama clasped them both close with a gentle smile on her face. It's okay. You went to the mountains, strayed far in a day, but when things became hard, you cared for each other. And keeping that promise makes me a proud mother. Perhaps we can make a new promise today. If there's something you want to do, you tell me, okay? Something you need or something you want to do. I promise we'll talk and I'll listen to you. We'll only make promises we can all keep now. Now, boys, it's time to curl up and sleep. We'll dream of adventures to go on together, staying true to our words now and forever. Because keeping a promise is special. You see, it's how I trust you and you trust in me. The pandas who promised kept their word forever. And now we will sing the children out for children's benediction. Good morning. My name is Faithiana Leonard, and I'm the Congregational Life Coordinator for our church. Membership in this community means so much to so many. This is a place where we grow with one another ethically and spiritually. It's a place where we commit to serve our world and one another justly. This is a place which calls us to love radically. Each time we draw our circle wider by one person, we live into our mission and values.
The membership affirmation is an occasion for all of our members to renew the vows of membership. For like anything, church membership has meaning to the degree that we commit to it. To take a moment to say out loud that we are members, to embrace together some words that point in the direction of growing and deepening our faith is helpful and encouraging. To be a member here is to enter into the denominational covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Association, as well as the bond of union and the mission of this congregation. To be a member here is to assume an aspiration for the 4 P's of membership: presence, participation, pledge, and practice. Let us renew our membership covenant and reaffirm commitment to our principles, missions, and aspirations. At this time, for all members to reaffirm membership, we also especially recognize and welcome the new members, affirming the vows of membership with us for the first time. I will call the names of people who have joined since we last recognized new members. If I call your name, if you're here, come on up and stand with faith in me. Aaron Rosenfield, Dennis Cooper, Katie Swalwell, and Susie Pritchett.
I will invite all of our members to participate with me in the words of membership affirmation, those who are new and those who have been committed members for decades. To our visitors, guests, and friends with us today, we thank you for being here. We are honored to have you witnessing present for this act of commitment and recommitment of our members. There is a yellow half sheet in the order of service that has the words of our membership affirmation. With all the members now stand in body or in spirit and respond with the words indicated on the yellow insert. Please affirm with me our denominational covenant. We covenant to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritage as of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. Our covenant is also expressed in this congregation's mission. We covenant to love radically, grow ethically, spiritually, and serve justly. Please also affirm our congregation's bond of union. We associate ourselves together for the study and the practice of morality and religion as interpreted by growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful one another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
And our congregation also has an aspirational covenant. We covenant to care for our own well-being, each other's well-being, and the well-being of our community as a whole. We will recognize the inherent worth and dignity of all, be respectful and kind, valuing the gifts and individuality of all, listen with empathy and consider the impact of our words and actions, be patient and understanding with each other, find a pathway and work for reconciliation. You are entrusted with the authority to decide by your votes who shall be your officers, your minister, what our budget will be, and whether to adopt congregational resolutions. With this authority come the aspirations of membership. I accept the authority entrusted in me and will strive to give
Thank you. You may be seated. Our new members, not you guys. Our new members, as each member has before you, you may sign our membership book to mark this covenantal commitment.
And we give to each new member a flower. Faith will do that. For us, the flower is a symbol of our individual beauty in the midst of a welcoming and nurturing community. Also the symbol of the blooming possibilities for us when we come together to be a faith community of memory and hope. And I have handed each one a document affirming our commitment to their support, and it includes our pledge to support them.
Our newest members have joined with you today in affirming the covenants of membership. Let us honor them with the congregational pledge on the back of the insert from which we were just reading. Please say with me. We, the members of First Unitarian Church, welcome you to our covenant and our shared journey to grow, serve, and love. We welcome your contributions, for though our common effort, we may nurture our spirits and help heal our world. In gratitude, we accept the unique gifts you bring to our beloved community and your pledge of presence, your participation, your Unitarian Universalist practice, and your support of our community. We pledge to support you and your families with friendship, goodwill, and respect. After the service, please heartily greet our new members with the right hand of fellowship and welcome. And let us now make an exception to our practice of not applauding during worship and put our hands together in appreciation of our new members.
Is that working? Chapter 3. The Council of Nicaea in 325 was bad news for Unitarian Christians. Arius argued that the divinity of the Father was greater than that of the Son. Jesus was divine, was more than human, but was not God. This Arian Christianity lost out to the Trinitarian view that Father and Son were of the same substance, co-eternal and co-equal. This 2016 painting by Giovanni Gasparo depicts Bishop, later Saint Nicholas, slapping Arius at the Council of Nicaea. Yes, that Saint Nicholas. So, Arians came out of Nicaea not only heretics, but on Santa Claus's naughty list. The effect of the council was to emphasize the importance of having the right doctrine and de-emphasize the ethics and values of living a Christian life. And that was bad news for the other side of our heritage, the Universalist Christians. Virtually from the beginning, some Christians had understood that everyone was going to heaven, universal salvation. They had biblical support. 2 Peter 3, the Lord does not want any to perish, but all to come to repentance. 1 Corinthians 15, for as all die in Adam, so all will be made alive in Christ. And Romans 14,
As I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall give praise to God. Sure sounds like salvation was to be universal. But as Christianity pivoted to a doctrinal emphasis, universalism had to be squelched. Why? Because if you insist that only those who believe the right doctrine get into heaven, then you can't tolerate the view that everybody gets into heaven regardless of doctrine.
Good morning. I'm Barb Glass, Pastoral Care Associate for our congregation. You were invited to call upon the pastoral care team if you're going through any significant transition in your life, just to talk it over. Reach out to us at pastoralcareteam@usdsm.org. You can always request assistance, volunteer to provide it, or submit a joy or sorrow through the Caring Community page on our website, or by speaking to me or any member of the pastoral care team. We have the following joys and sorrows to share this week. Ryan and Tracy Beck share that Ryan's father, Gary Beck, died on January 6th. He was 81. He was a loving and devoted father, father-in-law and grandpa, and a fixture in the Runnels community. As the family shared in his obituary, Gary's wealth was not measured in material possessions, but in the countless smiles he gave and received. His presence was larger than life, and his absence leaves a void that can only be filled by the memories and the lessons he left behind. Our condolences to the Beck family. There will be a card after the service that you can sign. Now, this is a joy. I was at a circle supper last night. Oh, and interestingly, one of our new members, Aaron Rosenfield, was there. And I have to tell you that he is a fabulous cook. He did a superb pot roast stew. So he is contributing that gift as a new member. And Elaine Imlau shares, Jean McCracken, Dave Whitkey, and Elaine Imlau, as immigration support team leaders, have teamed up with other church members to form the Allied Congregations for Immigration Support. They are happy to announce assisting a Sudanese family moving into a house earlier this month. After living in limbo for 3 months in an extended stay hotel, the 4 school-aged children are settled in school, and the 4 adults are beginning the job search. And Aaron, I am very sorry because I know you don't like any attention on yourself. May we all be grounded in beloved community. Let us share together now the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. May you call the name out loud or type it into the chat. As we share these names, may the love of this community hold them all. Mike.
Dear Spirit of love, we hold in our hearts the people of Palestine, where civilians are still being injured and killed in Gaza and the West Bank, the people of China, where minorities are cleansed, imprisoned, or forcibly medicated in hospitals. All of us are affected by climate change, such as in Spain, where water is scarce due to drought, and California, where fires continue even in the wet winter season. We hold in gratitude the selfless service given by so many during those fires, including groups of Latin American immigrants, many undocumented, who went into fire-torn areas in groups of 20 or so with shovels and hoses to help save the homes of people they don't know. We hold in gratitude all the dedicated people helping us address climate change, such as the builders of solar power. Across the European Union, for the first time, solar power now generates more electricity than coal. We hold in our hearts all those affected by the Marburg virus outbreak in Tanzania, the Uyghurs of China, who after a decade continue to struggle to find home, and all those who are fearful in the face of the pardon of many of the January 6th prisoners. Spirit of love, be with us. Keep our intention set on compassion. We ask of ourselves the mindful intention to delight in what is good, to confront what is cruel, and heal what is broken. Amen.
May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May we breathe in awareness of every pain and grief and breathe out compassion and comfort. We light 3 candles, one for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, one for those shared in writing, and one for those held silently among us. For all of these, we now observe a minute of silence.
The first training in compassion, you'll remember, was remember the four basics. Life is precious, we're going to die, actions matter, and everyone suffers. The second was see everything as a dream. Today we ask, who knows this? Who is aware of this? Who is hearing these words right now? We think we know. Me, I'm hearing these words. I'm aware of the fact that everything is like a dream. Thoughts, maybe I'm a little skeptical of that. Nothing could be more obvious than this. But have you really examined it? Let me suggest an experiment in awareness. Find that me. Find a definite, concrete, identifiable somebody there within your awareness. You can find plenty of thoughts and emotions, sensations, opinions, sense experiences, but it's very difficult to find an I. Imagine that suddenly, for no reason, your mind were to become very, very quiet. There were only a sound, maybe the sound of silence or the sound of wind or water or machinery or simply a feeling of presence. And there's nobody complaining, and there's no stories going on in your mind. There's only awareness. In such a moment, there isn't anybody there to congratulate you for it. As soon as there seems to be someone or to notice or congratulate, the experience passes, the inner dialogue resumes. We have a word in our language, consciousness, but no one knows what this word means. It's a word that simply covers over our confusion. So examine the nature of awareness. The sense of me emerges somehow from thoughts and emotions, but it itself cannot be seen or measured. It both exists and does not exist at the same time. The previous slogan was, see everything as a dream. We looked outward at our perception of the world. With this slogan, we look inward. We're looking at the looking itself. What is awareness? How does it arise? What does it mean to perceive a world? Examine awareness itself. What do you see? Where does that seeing come from? Over and over, look at your own mind, and then look again. These two practices, see everything as a dream and examine the nature of awareness, undermine our attempts to establish inner and outer solidity and liberate the energy we invest in that pursuit. Keep questioning awareness. What is it exactly? And where does it come from? 1009 in your teal hymnal. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
We come now to the offering, recalling again the fifth of our historic principles, the right of conscience and the use of democratic method. In the spirit of gratitude, we acknowledge now a few of the thanks posted on our gratitude board in Griffin Hall. Thanks to our pianist, Bruce Martin, for his improvising, his skills, and at choir practice, the stamina to play the same piece over and over. He says, but he gets it right. Thanks to our staff, Tracy, Hannah, and Faith, for the lovely arrangement of poinsettias on the stage during the holiday season. The offering, then, is gratefully given and gratefully received.
Last week, I mistakenly said the presidential inauguration was to be 1 week after Martin Luther King Day. Sorry about that brain fart. The inauguration, in fact, has happened on Martin Luther King Day, and we are now into this president's new term. And from what we've seen so far, it doesn't look great. What is ours to do is keep living by our values, keep living into the mission we share, to love radically, to grow ethically and spiritually, to serve justly. Every act of caring about someone or something other than yourself and your narrowly conceived self-interests is an act of resistance. Every time you acknowledge that you don't know something but are interested in learning more about it, even if the truth is uncomfortable, it's an act of resistance. Every time you accept a responsibility when something goes wrong, that's an act of resistance. Every time you give credit to others when something goes right, that's an act of resistance. Every time you thoughtfully examine an issue rather than grasping at quick fixes or dismissals, that too is an act of resistance. We sang today in our opening hymn, "Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are freed." And our spirits do long to be made whole. Even when we understand that we are whole, the world leaves us often feeling that we aren't. We don't feel connected to our neighbors. The fragmentation in the nation's public political sphere produces a fragmentation in our psyches. We need to feel part of something we're all in together. There are a number of conditions that have contributed to our current predicament. Social media enables instantaneous spread of false information, certainly a factor. Today, though, I want to look at meritocracy. The rise of meritocracy, which has been going on for decades, by its nature and design, left many behind. Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised at the intensity of resentment about that which erupted in the 2016 election, simmered through the 2020 election, and grew stronger yet for the 2024 election. Meritocracy is based on the idea that people get positions of power and authority and wealth by deserving to have those positions. So meritocracy depends on some implicit or explicit desert theory. Desert theory is not a theory about why people like to have something sugary at the end of a meal, nor is desert theory about why people desert or abandon other people or areas. It's spelled like desert, but desert theory is also not about why some regions become dry and arid. Desert theory tries to offer an account of what constitutes deservingness. It is our mission to grow ethically and spiritually, and the role of your conception of desert is in your ways of thinking it's a part of your ethical reasoning. So let's think about that conception and see if we can find some avenues for growing ethically, because growing is an act of resistance. We very commonly talk and think in terms of who deserves what. We say that a hardworking student who produces work of high quality deserves a high grade. That a vicious criminal deserves a harsh penalty. That someone who has suffered a series of misfortunes deserves some good luck for a change. An athlete might deserve a prize in virtue of having excelled in a competition. A researcher might deserve our gratitude for having perfected a vaccine against a disease. Someone who acts without any regard for the welfare of others may deserve our contempt. The victim of an industrial accident may deserve compensation from her negligent employer. An employee who deserves a promotion in virtue of evident talent, hard work, and years of valuable service. Deservingness is a kind of fiction. It's a social imaginary, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have real potency to make a big difference in our lives. After all, Money is fiction too. It's a social imaginary, and it certainly makes a big difference. It used to be a shiny yellowish metal that was too soft to be useful, but an implicit agreement arose to regard it as valuable, and so it was. Then it was just slips of paper, and now it's even more imaginary than that. But since we have agreed to share this imagination, we've developed clear procedures for when you have it and exactly how much. The electrons inside of bank computers keep track of each person's amount. Dessert is this kind of fiction. How deserving you are and of what is not nearly as precisely determined as how much money you have, and yet notions of desert do shape our lives and the way we treat each other. Sometimes we say a person deserves something if they are entitled to it. We might say a customer deserves a refund from a merchant if the customer purchased a product that was sold with a guarantee and then the product turned out to be defective. But being entitled to something is one way to deserve it, but it's not the only way. Entitled means that there are rules in place to say what you are to get, but sometimes our sense of what is deserved doesn't match up with what the rules say. Consider the case of a wealthy old man dies leaving behind 2 grandsons, one of whom is vicious, never treated his grandfather with respect, and one was virtuous and always respectful and caring. We might feel that the virtuous grandson deserved to inherit more of the fortune, but the vicious one would nevertheless be entitled to the greater share if that was what the will stipulated. So you can be entitled even if you don't deserve, and you can sometimes deserve without being entitled. Some things we say everyone deserves. Everyone deserves fairness, justice, human rights. And then there are other cases where only one or a few people will get the job or the promotion or the win, and we might talk about which person deserves it or deserves it most. I think a lot of our desert theory is mostly absorbed from the discourse around us. We hear people talk about what so-and-so deserves, and over time we internalize ways of applying the sentiment. But sometimes we do reason with each other about deservingness. It's not always just an intuition. It can be reasoned about. This is easiest to see when it comes to what we think everyone deserves just in virtue of being human. So we come to the argument for meritocracy. Positions of greatest power and prestige should be open to everyone on the basis of merit. The U.S. never had an official aristocracy, but it certainly had an unofficial one. The old money families got into the best schools and went on to the best paying and most powerful positions in society. The argument for meritocracy was an argument that people of merit deserved those positions, not people of breeding. So meritocracy seems like a great step forward for justice and fairness. Ivy League institutions, from their founding up until about 1960, admitted only white Christian men, and within that group selected students for breeding. These were schools for the sons of well-established families. Then, in the middle of the 20th century, Harvard President James Bryant Conant, and slightly later, Yale President Kingman Brewster, chose to abandon their historic role as finishing schools for America's aristocracy. As Daniel Markovits describes it, alumni had long believed that their sons had a birthright to follow them to Yale. Now prospective students would gain admission based on achievement rather than breeding. Meritocracy, for a time, replaced complacent insiders with talented and hardworking outsiders. Surely that was a very positive move. People with merit deserve to get admitted. People of aristocratic breeding have no special deservingness. By 1970, a fierce merit-based competition had completely replaced the old cordial alliance between the universities and old money established families. Today, however, it's past time to consider our judgments of deservingness based on merit. We tend to think that merit is the product of 2 factors, talent and effort. but it's actually a product of three factors. We often overlook the importance of the third factor, quality training. Teachers, coaches, good equipment, and other resources. Excellence at basketball or ballet, at chess or computer programming, at piano or painting or composing poetry or any academic subject is not just a matter of native ability combined with dedication and determination. We'll look further into the role of the quality of training after an interlude with a piece of music that piano musics all over the world train on. Whether you spend 4 hours a week or 40 hours a week practicing at a skill, you will not make as much progress as you will if you also have a skilled and attentive coach guiding your practice. Further, when it comes to competitive college or professional sports programs, it takes more than a good coach. It takes platoons of coaches and lots of expensive equipment. When I was a graduate student at the University of Virginia in the late 1980s, it seemed all wrong to me that the university was then in the midst of spending $50 million to build a shiny new athletic training facility. In fact, though, a school cannot be competitive at Division I football without such resources. Resources make a difference. Because quality training is so crucial, it means that a big part of what admission departments regard as merit can be bought. So what started out as a move to open up elite institutions to deserving students from the middle and lower classes now entrenches the advantages of wealth. Expensive private schools pay off. A typical public high school spends $15,000 per child per year. Some poorer high schools spend $8,000 to $10,000 per child per year. But the top 20 private schools, as measured by Forbes, average $75,000 per child per year. And this buys results. It buys training, it buys smaller class size, more teacher attention, it buys more talented teachers, it buys careful education programs. The result is that while the average middle-class kid's SAT is 125 points higher than the average score of kids in poverty, the average score of kids of those whose parents earn more than $200,000 a year is 250 points greater than the average middle-class kid. Yes, the gap between rich and middle class is twice the size of the gap between middle class and poor. What does your desert theory say about whether the wealthier kids deserve those higher scores and the benefits they get as a result of those scores? Discounting the few who outright cheated, we can say, yes, they had talent and they worked hard. On the other hand, they also had a lot of quality training that wasn't available to middle and lower class kids. The result is that at Ivy League and what are called Ivy League Plus schools, the plus includes schools like Stanford, MIT, University of Chicago, Duke, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Caltech, the proportion of students who come from the top 1% of household incomes is greater than the proportion that come from the entire bottom 50% of household incomes. This comes as the upshot of meritocratic admission policies that were originally supposed to reverse this very disparity. Further, what students get when they arrive on campus is more quality training, much greater resources being spent on them. And the students and their families don't even have to pay for most of what they get. There is an enormous public subsidy that results from universities being taxed as charities, with alumni donations being tax deductible and endowments able to grow without being taxed. Princeton's tax exemption amounts to a public subsidy of $100,000 per student per year. Rutgers' public subsidy is less than $13,000 per student per year. Nearby Essex Community College has a public subsidy of only about $2,500 per student per year. We are pouring vast public resources into further advantaging the already advantaged. What does your desert theory say about that? And just as the resources expended at elite high schools matter for preparing the students to get into and succeed at elite universities, the resources expended at elite universities matter for preparing students to get into and succeed at the highest paid jobs. Many of the top law firms and financial institutions will only recruit at a few elite universities, and they will rarely hire graduates of an average state school. So that's one thing for us to think about, that our intuitions about the deservingness of merit often overlook the vastly unequal distribution of quality training. Now let's look at another factor. Our desert theory tends to say that working hard increases deservingness. But we don't always recognize that there is such a thing as working too hard. After all, it's not that the children of the elites aren't working hard for what they get. In fact, overall, they're probably working too hard. The pressure on the elite kids to do well is inordinate. As Daniel Markovits writes, elite middle and high schools now commonly require 3 to 5 hours of homework at night. Epidemiologists at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have warned of schoolwork-induced sleep deprivation. Wealthy students show higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse than poor students do. They also suffer from depression and anxiety at rates as much as triple those of their age peers throughout the country. A recent study of Silicon Valley High School found that 54% of students displayed moderate to severe symptoms of depression, and 80% displayed moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety. So what does your desert theory say about whether someone deserves what they're working for if what they're working for is a sleep-deprived, depressed, anxious, unhappy life? And it's only getting worse. As the competition is getting more and more intense, exclusive institutions are getting more and more exclusive. As recently as 1995, University of Chicago admitted 71% of its applicants. By 2019, it was admitting less than 6%. It's getting worse. And then, notes Markovits, the contest intensifies when meritocrats enter the workplace, where elite opportunity is exceeded only by the competitive effort required to grasp it. A person whose wealth and status depend on her human capital simply cannot afford to consult her own interests or passions in choosing her job. Instead, she must approach work as an opportunity to extract value from her human capital, especially if she wants an income sufficient to buy her children the type of schooling that secured her own eliteness. She must devote herself to a narrowly restricted class of high-paying jobs concentrated in finance, management, law, and medicine. Whereas aristocrats once considered themselves a leisure class, meritocrats work with unprecedented intensity. It used to be the poor that had to work long hours, and the rich were the leisure class. Not that that was a good system, but it's striking that now it's more often the rich who are working 70, 80 hours a week. And they are working at jobs many times that they aren't particularly happy at. One might be tempted to say that this is getting what they deserve in the sense that it's the punishment they deserve. Markovits goes on to say, elite workers find it harder and harder to pursue genuine passions or gain meaning through their work. Meritocracy traps entire generations inside demeaning fears and inauthentic ambitions, always hungry, but never finding or even knowing the right food. Moreover, doesn't your desert theory suggest that there should be some connection between the income that a given job deserves and its actual contribution to society? And yet that connection has been getting weaker and weaker. Don't both the losers and the winners of the meritocratic rat race deserve better than they are getting? The basic conceit of meritocracy is that those who succeed deserve to. So those in less prestigious positions in society internalize the message that it's their own fault, that they are less than. They grow resentful of the elite, and yes, start voting for populist demagogues who articulate resentment against elites. As Markovits notes, demagogues and charlatans monopolize and exploit meritocracy's discontents. Meritocratic inequality, therefore, induces not only deep discontent, but also widespread pessimism, verging on despair. So, we think people deserve what they merit, but meritocracy has these two problems. First, the fairness problem. There's unequal access to quality training, and this inequality is so great that the meritocracy today is really aristocracy by another name. Second, even if it were all perfectly fair and equitable, there's more to life than merit. Sure, merit matters in a lot of ways, but merit has become tyrannical. We shouldn't have to work that hard, shouldn't have to work 60 hours a week to deserve a concern and respect of our compatriots. Don't we all deserve better? Or rather, can we give ourselves a break from the very idea of desert, of merit, of the constant pressure to deserve, to earn everything? We could build a society with dramatically expanded access to quality training. We could build a society where we all have a chance to contribute meaningfully to the overall social good, and where a person's income bears some relationship to their real contribution to society. But even more importantly, we could build a society that affords everyone enough rest and leisure for physical and psychological health. May all of that be so.
Please rise and join us for our closing hymn, number 121, in your gray hymnal.
I will read the unison chalice extinguishing words and do it a segment at a time, and if you'll repeat. This beacon of peace, this torch of liberty, this fire of justice. This beacon of peace, this torch of liberty, this fire of justice, we will take with us in our hearts. We will take with us in our hearts, that it may light the way to peace and justice, that it may light the way to peace and justice for every child of this earth, for every child of this earth.
And for those of you who see God, may God be with you. For those who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for those who seek a better way, may the path be found and the courage to take it step by step. Go in peace.